All right, team. Welcome back to another episode of Ask Top, sponsored by MentorMilitary.com. I'm your host, Command Sergeant Major Retired Mark Garrett, and today we're honored to have Mark Hurricane Halliburton, Command Sergeant Major. And one of the things about Mark is he is the host, or one of the hosts, of Unmuted. If you have not seen that show, go to Facebook, follow Unmuted. The interviews they have there are impactful, insightful, and they have some serious guests. Sergeant Majors of the Army, 4 stars, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. I mean, They're hitting it on all cylinders. So, what we're going to talk about today is, at least first, is the person behind the soldier. But before we get started, Sergeant Major, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What unit you're in, the schools you've been to, your MOS background?
Yeah, sure. So, Command Sergeant Major Mark Halliburton of 40th Military Police Battalion. I'm the Command Sergeant Major. I've been in position since 1 March of 2019. Originally from a small town, Midway, Alabama, northeast portion of the state of Alabama. Joined Army 1999. As a 31 Bravo military police, been to most schools that a non-commissioned officer can say they've been to, such as NCOPSs at all levels, to include graduating class 68, United States Army Sergeants Major Academy. Attended numerous courses from executive protection to protective services to evasive driving to special reaction investigators. Massive fitness, physical security. Most of the schools that are synonymous with my background graduated from the University of Purdue with my bachelor's degree in political science. And my couple of hobbies I want to throw out there, I'm an avid Auburn football fan. And I worship Auburn more than life itself. So I don't know if that's possible, but I think so. But that's as much as I can think of.
Class 68. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Because we all know Class 52 was the best class. We got to have that discussion. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's the best class ever.
I mean, it's your opinion.
Just so you know, viewers, every Sergeant Major's class says they're the best class ever. So,
I think we will go down in history by our class. I mean, I know your class. You know what I heard is that most even-numbered classes produce more nominative sergeants major than odd-numbered classes. Fun fact.
Wow. So you're in the running, Sergeant Major of the Army.
If it happened. But if you look at most sergeants major of the Army, their class number was an even number.
Wow. Did not know that little factoid. All right, let's jump into this. When I first started talking to you, I found you to be an incredible leader that has their heart in the right place. One of the things that you said to me that really hit me and touched my heart was, we don't know the person behind the soldier. What do you mean by that?
We as leaders believe that because knowing the soldier means we know the person. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that the soldier makes a conscious decision to put on the uniform. They volunteer to put on the uniform, but it's the person who does that. It's not the soldier. We're not soldiers before we're people before we're soldiers. And so when we understand the person, this is synonymous whether they're a soldier or not a soldier or a patriot, just an American citizen. When we tend to know people, we tend to respect them more because we truly understand them. And so when they put on that uniform that they've earned the right to wear, and you tend to focus on the uniform. You tend to focus on things that are required with the uniform. You tend to focus on things they must do and their job proficiency. But we kind of sort of say, well, I know what TV show they're like, and I know what food they eat. But that's not knowing a person. That's knowing their choices and what they like. But that's not knowing who that soldier is, who that person is. But I think fundamentally, when we understand that person, we understand their background, we understand emotionally what charges them, we understand the dynamics of their family, the culture in which they were raised, the environment in which they were developed, and their goals. Because at the end of the day, some soldiers retire, some soldiers don't. But I think if we pour more energy into knowing that person, not just as equally as we do that soldier, then I think we will create a greater soldier. Because when you're a greater person, you become a greater soldier. Good people make great soldiers, you know? And so to me, that's my ideology behind that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. But something else that you mentioned to me that really touched me was when we're discussing the person behind the soldier, what'd you tell me about substandard soldiers?
You know, me. You know, I was a substandard soldier. I take it back to 2000. We redeployed to Kosovo, from Kosovo back to Heidelberg, Germany. And I was placed in the arms room, and to issue out weapons. And when I was placed in the arms room to issue out weapons was because of my performance in Kosovo. I was always late. You know, there I was. We had the regimental command sergeant major for the military police corps, who was soon to be the regimental sergeant major, and we're in a vehicle. And before we left the FOB, Camp Bondsteel, I misplaced my 9mm magazine. So I lost 15 rounds. Here we're in a pretty dangerous situation, a hostile, hazardous area, and I lose it. And of course, when we get back to the FOB, you know, we're looking everywhere, and of course, the soon-to-be command sergeant major James Barrett looks at me, is like, you know what, Private? You know, they told me how horrible of a soldier you are, and you just proved to me how horrible a soldier you were. And so we redeployed. You know, I go into the arms room where the land of the misfits were, and that's what happened. And I begin to tell myself, and it didn't snowball. I start to become even worse. Then one day, First Sergeant Joseph T. Harris comes in the arms room. Brand new First Sergeant says, "Come here, Private. Meet me in my office." And he sat me down. He said, "Mark," and I said, he just called me by my first name. He said, "Mark, where are you from?" And I told him where I was from. He's like, "Why did you join the Army?" And I told him why I joined the Army. He's like, well, what do you do for hobbies? And I left the office, and I said to myself, what did he give two craps about who I am, where I come from? But then the next day, he comes in, and he asked me, he had a piece of paper, everything that I told him the day before. And he said, "Mark Halliburton, Union Springs, Midway, Alabama." And we basically regurgitated. I was like, he actually remembered. The next thing he asked me is, "Why are you in the arms room?" Well, First Sergeant will put everybody in the arms room. That's a misfit. Next thing you know, I'm out of the arms room, and I'm back into a line platoon in the military police company. The bottom line was, by him caring and showing interest into probably the worst soldier in that company. I was the absolute worst soldier in that company. His interest catapulted me and inspired me to do better, to work harder, not only to make myself better, so to impress upon him that he cares about me. So I'm going to show that I care, that he took interest in me. And it changed the trajectory of my career. I was on the borderline of ETS and going right back home. And the next thing you know, 4 months later, I'm standing in front of the promotion board to sergeant. And then subsequently was inducted into the Sergeant Morales Club as a Sergeant E5 within 9 months later of me leaving the arms room. I wish I could make up the story, but to me, you talk about one extreme to the next, that was me. And so when I see troubled soldiers and I hear about troubled soldiers, you necessarily can't write them off, Mark, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally understand. In fact, we shared something that we know more about substandard soldiers than we know about top performers. What do you mean by that?
We do. You know, when you're a top performer, Audie Murphy, NCO Soldier of the Year. Most people only tend to talk to you while you're preparing for improving yourself or receiving these accolades. And people kind of don't dig into your personal life. They don't dig into who you are. They seemingly don't care about your personal life because of who you are in uniform at work is a superstar. And so if you were to ask most NCOs of the year or very, very squared away soldier, not too many people know about their deep, dark dungeons. But if you take that substandard soldier, you know where they live, you know everything about this soldier because of the actions taken to kind of rectify that soldier. And all of your attention is that soldier. You hear that age-old adage, you spend 90% of your time with 10% of your soldiers, but you know 100% about that 10% because you're vested into that person. But then that soldier who's so squared away, they seemingly fall off on a deep end. They seemingly, harm themselves or fall victim to suicide. And we ask ourselves, well, how did this happen? This was such a great soldier. They had such a great promising career. They were Audie Murphy and NCO of the Year. There was a phenomenal drill sergeant and was on their way to be promotable to sergeant first class. And things just happened. It's because no one took the time to understand the person in that uniform. They looked at the uniform, and the uniform walked on water, so they assumed the person walked on water. And Mark, that's not true. It's not true. It's not. And I think squared away soldiers, sometimes mask their demons with their performance at work. That's just my opinion.
I think you're absolutely true. So the lesson learned and the takeaway is we need to know whether substandard or high performer, who those people are. We need to be asking direct questions, open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. And, when you talk about a substandard performer, they're fighting demons too. But one thing I found is accountability and responsibility. You take that substandard soldier and you provide them responsibility and say, I'm going to hold you accountable. And what I've seen is that soldier transforms. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree. Because accountability, it's just like your children. When you hold your children accountable, you're not holding them accountable to punish them, to make them feel bad, or to make them less than of a person. You hold them accountable to teach them a life lesson. That every choice and decision you make either has a reward or a consequence. Every decision. There's not some decisions or well, maybe not this choice. Every choice and decision has a consequence or reward. And so, by understanding that and holding soldiers accountable, I think we fail, as supervisors, leaders, is that we think by holding someone accountable, they may dislike us, which I think that's something in itself, because I think you're leading by the wrong reason if you're leading and not holding people accountable, which in turn you don't want them to like you or you don't want them to dislike you. And I think that's what catapults to a bigger problem about likership. I'm not going to hold them accountable, or she, because if I do, they're not going to like me. I'm going to feel ineffective. And so I'll kind of let them get away with certain things in order for them to keep liking me. Or you have that group that you have that they do hold them accountable, but they don't take the time to sit back and teach those life lessons of accountability, which means that you're accounting for your actions. It's a base word of accountability, accounting for something, And, I think once we, as leaders, understand it and we're able to shape and teach our subordinates and our soldiers, while we're holding them accountable, kind of like as a parent, same philosophy, this is why I'm doing this in order to prevent you from doing this. I I think they're more susceptible to receive it as opposed to just doing it because you have to.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you some personal questions.
Okay.
Tell me what the biggest mistake was that you ever made that you don't want a soldier to learn the hard way.
Humiliating a soldier. Humiliating the soldier by far. 2006, I was a drill sergeant. And I believe that when I seen my drill sergeant when I was a private, I seen the aggression, the antics, the drama associated with being a drill sergeant. And I took that to another level. We had a barracks inspection, and a soldier didn't make his bed. And the soldier didn't make his bed, and it was just horrible. And so I sit there and I brought the soldier out in front of the privates, and I berated the soldier, screaming over the soldier, like, how can you be 19 years old and you don't know how to make a bed? This is ridiculous. We need to teach you how to make a bed. Did you not learn this from your parents before you learned art? Come to find out the soldier lived in homeless shelters on cots for the last 4 years and never had a bed to sleep on. The bed that he slept on was his first bed. The first bed he slept on was a bed when he got to the reception right there at Fort Leonard. It was the first bed he ever slept on in 4 years. And so his bed-making ability was far and few between because of his life and how he was raised. And he did not disclose this information to me until later. He comes into my office and he tells me this story. And I felt so humiliated. I felt so embarrassed that I humiliated this 18, 19-year-old soldier for not knowing how to make a bed, and assuming he did, not knowing his past. And that his other peers knew that he came from a homeless shelter. And I embarrassed myself. Because ultimately, I demonized myself. I made myself into a toxic person, unapproachable, selfless, heartless, passionless, and the soldiers seen me. And what I did is, as I took the platoon out, and I apologized to every private, and we were in red phase. And I apologize to every private, because sometimes we don't know the life stories of these soldiers, of where they come from and the conditions detrimental to who they were before they joined the Army. We don't know that. We assume that everyone comes from the same walk and have the same upbringing and have the same morals and have the same values. But to know that this soldier was homeless for 4 years, living shelter to shelter with his mother and his 4-year-old sister, made me feel the lowest of the lows. And that's the lowest I've ever felt in my military career. And so that's probably the worst mistake I've made in my own career.
Wow, that's powerful. I'll share something with you too. Humiliating someone was probably my biggest mistake or thing that got to my heart. And what happened was I had a sergeant first class that was my HHD first sergeant. And he was just simply ate up like a soup sandwich with everything. So one day I got a little irate and I was like, what is wrong with you? This is basic soldiering. I don't understand. You act like you've never seen this stuff before. And he looked at me and he said, I haven't. I was stunned. I was shocked. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, all the jobs I had never involved anything like this. I've never seen the real Army. Okay, fair enough. So we started a mentoring program. I apologized to him. But the reason why I bring that up is something else about the person behind the soldier. We see what rank somebody wears, and we automatically assume, at least I did, that they have a certain degree of knowledge. Would you say that's good?
Expectation, absolutely, yes.
All right, let's jump into something else here. What is the best compliment you've ever seen from a soldier or received from a soldier?
That you're the greatest NCO I've ever seen. By a specialist. That wasn't my soldier. That really touched me because, it kind of confirmed that I was doing the right thing. I was being the NCO I needed to be. So that's probably the greatest compliment that I've ever received as an NCO.
Well, I'll tell you, when the day comes that you retire and you start getting phone calls about thank you, but I remember I had a young sergeant that was a squad leader. I was a platoon sergeant. And he told me once, he goes, I hated you. I hated you. I could not believe the stuff you made us do. He said, now I'm a platoon sergeant, and I am you. He said, now I get it. You were always nice to us. You were always professional, but you held us accountable. And I will tell you, that is something that really touched my heart. And he said, hate's a strong word, but definitely dislikes. And that really touched my heart. But let's talk about Unmuted. Tell me about it. How did it get started? What's going on with it?
So to talk about Unmuted, let's talk about the page. So about 4 years ago, not 4 years ago, 2017, I was in the academy, and our first guest speaker was the Command Master Chief of the Air Force, Chief Wright, who I had on our page about 2-3 weeks ago. He came to guest speak at the academy, the Sergeant Major Academy, and his presence was unbelievable. But more importantly, the notes and the messages that he gave us was out of this world. And it resonated so much to me that we talked about it in class in small groups, and then when I got home, I was sitting on the porch. Now, granted, I first became a member of Facebook December of 2016. And so in 2017, I was a Facebook user for maybe 7 months, 8 months in August, 9 months in September when the chief came. And so I wasn't really familiar with Facebook. However, I was sitting down and I say, well, what's this live thing? So I go live and I start talking about the notes that the chief gave us, because I felt that this message should be shared to every soldier, not just the sergeant major. Information is not rank specific. It should be general in nature. And so, which I disagree with a lot of the cohorts and, segregated groups. So that's where the name Freestyle Every Day for Everybody comes from. But nonetheless, I'm talking about this information I received. And the next thing you know, multiple people come up and Master Halliburton, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing those notes. That's great information. That's great insight. And so the next thing you know, I said, well, wait a minute. I'm going to do this every time. So normally our guest speakers will come on Friday. And so seemingly every Friday, we had a guest speaker. Well, this kind of continued after the academy, and when I came to the battalion, I would get on the page and I would talk about things in the battalion leadership and try to impart some knowledge on the soldiers. And the next thing you know, I started having a couple thousand views. I was like, wait a minute, that's a lot. One day, I went live, and this live was special because roughly, I think it was maybe 12 to 13,000 views on my personal page that viewed this video. And so that night, I was like, wait a minute, I think I need to take someone in the soldier's advice and start a page. So that night, March 20th of this year, I started a page. And it grew like wildfire. I think we're on the doorstep of 7,000 members since March 20th, roughly, 5 months. And, and from that page grew the show Unmuted, which is really what I did on every Friday. I just call it so Unmuted, meaning that I don't believe in scripting anything or politicizing anything I say in order to not offend someone, in order to be politically correct. I think sometimes candor is important. And unmuted is a perfect word to describe the ideology in which our page is bound upon. Being able to express yourself professionally without being scripted. And so unmuted became the word and the name of our show that we do on Friday, which of course grew other shows that we have on our page, like the Mega Hood Show and Let's Talk About It with Master Sergeant Green. And so that's really where it started. But ultimately today, it's really growing and is really becoming impactful, not just to us as senior leaders, but our junior soldiers.
Well, I think that's what really got my attention. You were not rank specific to the sergeant majors. You reached out and reached down to the bottom and said, you're welcome. Come and join us. See the different side of senior leadership. To me, that's powerful. And I keep using that word powerful a lot. And the reason for that is you guys really touch my heart in what you're doing, the messages you're providing, and that team on Unmuted does a great job.
I appreciate that, Mark. I really do. Because at the end of the day, it's what we can impart to the soldiers. Sergeants major, master sergeants, first sergeants, their career is set. But to me, is I don't believe in segregation by rank and sharing information to peer groups and different cohorts. Because to me, ultimately, what is wrong with giving the same information that you have to a junior soldier? Eventually, if they stay in long enough, they're going to need to know it. But what you do is you open up your aperture to where you're becoming approachable. But when you have these segregated groups and you have to be a certain rank in order to join this group, what are you really saying? That, knowledge is segregated and it's only protected because of rank base, but information, to me, knowledge is power. Sharing is powerful. And so if we are truly sharing information, that's powerful. Having the information is just pure power.
When you say that, it brings back a memory, a war story for me. We're doing a hot rearm refuel one night, and the pump unit goes down on the fueler. So you got an 05, sergeant major, a first sergeant, a lieutenant, all trying to figure out how to fix this problem. How many years of education and experience are around that little hose? I look over and see this PV2 just shaking his head. So I walk over and I say, hey, what's going on? What do you know that I don't know? He said, if I tell you, will you let me go to sleep? I said, how long? He said, 2 hours. I said, you got a deal. He says, I'll be right back. So he comes back with a forklift and he lifts the blivet up and says, it'll gravity feed now. And I was like, all this education, all this experience, and nobody looked over to see this PV2 with all the knowledge. And he was afraid to walk over because all that experience was standing there. He saw the rank and not the person.
Wow.
And that goes back to what you've been talking about. He saw our rank, not the person behind it, because evidently we had not been around him enough to be approachable. Or maybe we did something that he didn't feel that we were approachable. No matter what we do, we're examples. Good or bad, we're examples. And one of the things I learned was a lot of leaders, most leaders want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we don't know what the right thing is because what we do is what our leaders did to us, or exactly how our leaders executed something. And then later on, you find out that's not the right way. But my sergeant did it to me. Okay, well now we're going to learn together. So I think that's powerful too, because we take for granted, again, looking at the rank on the chest, that people know the right way. A brand new E5 comes into the unit, got pinned yesterday, and everybody below him thinks That sergeant knows his business. Everybody above him thinks that sergeant knows his business. And that sergeant's like, what do I need to do? Because I am totally clueless. Or there's another scenario. When I was a platoon sergeant, I knew how to be a first sergeant. Then I became a first sergeant. And I realized that I knew what the outside of a first sergeant looked like. But Lord have mercy, I had a whole lot to learn about what a first sergeant did behind the scenes. So sometimes we're not ready for that next rank, but we believe we are. And I believe that no matter how well prepared we think we are for that rank, we need experience. I think after I was a first sergeant the second time, I was a decent first sergeant. Sergeant major, same thing. And I'd probably make a good sergeant major now. But that's because I'm older and got some more wisdom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, with Unmuted, what's going on this Friday?
So, right now, I'm waiting on a guest. I am trying to get the Combined Arms Center, Command Sergeant Major, to come on the show. The Combined Arms Center, roughly 20 plus centers of excellence fall up under the command. And so his sphere of influence, all things generating, all things centered of excellence is powerful. And, I kind of wanted to bring him on because his influence and to kind of share some insight, from, the Combined Arms perspective and kind of provide. But unfortunately, if I can't get him, because he's a very busy person, and we've been talking, he's stationed right here in Leavenworth, I am going to find a soldier, specialist or below, no agenda, no subject, and have a conversation with a soldier that will be open to everybody. Because ideally, what I want is people to see a person in the twilight of their career and the person in the infancy of their career having a conversation and kind of organizing ideas and sharing ideas and talking about life in a relaxed setting from one professional soldier to another. Just the difference is I'm a command sergeant major and they're probably a specialist. And I have that idea, and I've been sitting on that idea, but I think if I cannot get Command Sergeant Major Doxey, I believe that's what we're going to do. I have the soldier in mind, and the soldier is not necessarily a high-quality soldier. The soldier has some hiccups, and I think that's important to have that conversation of how that soldier can overcome and become better. And I think that's going to be very, very touching to a lot of people who watch that show.
Amazing. Well, do you have anything else you want to share with us as we start to wrap up?
Well, Mark, I think what you're doing on the other side of the aisle, being a careerist and a command sergeant major retired, I think it's important that you're taking lessons learned, still relevant to this day. I think that's important, that you're truly embodying what it means to be a soldier for life, and it's not just in words. I think sometimes we say soldier for life, but we say that because it's a buzzword. But, just like when you see a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. And they have that mentality. I think you are embodying that soldier for life mentality because of your continuing dedication to our craft as soldiers. And the soldier is able to continue to grow, and you're influencing it outside of the uniform. To me, that embodies soldier for life. Soldier for life, continue to get back to your craft. So I just want to commend you on what you're doing. I think it's important to note that.
I really appreciate that. It's a wonderful feeling to know when soldiers and leaders come back to you and say, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's very touching. All right, ladies and gentlemen, team, as we start to wrap this up, Command Sergeant Major Mark Hurricane Halliburton from Unmuted. Tune in on Fridays on Facebook. Follow him And from my heart to yours, from AskTop.net and MentorMilitary.com, thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, if you found today's information valuable and we provided something that enlightened you, please reach down and hit the subscribe button. Follow us on Facebook at AskTop and Mentor Military, and follow us at Mentor Military. If you're interested in some of our products, you can find them at MentorMilitary.com. Thanks for watching.